Now, something that is not visible in the front end of the website often gets ignored. Schema markup is one of that thing. Schema markup is a vital component of SEO optimization for better ranking in Google search results. Unfortunately, schema markup is often painted as a difficult concept to grasp in the SEO ecosystem. Simplifying this concept, here is Rebecca Gill sharing about schema markup in the SEO mix and much more. So let's get started and welcome Rebecca on the show. Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And I should say good morning. Okay, so before we get on with the ever so complex or considered complex topic of schema markup, why don't you give a quick introduction about your online life?
Sure. So my name is Rebecca Gill. For those who don't know me, I am a seasoned, aka older, marketer, and I have 20 years of experience with sales and online marketing and 15 specific to SEO. I am currently serving as the Vice President of Digital Marketing Services at Imagine, and I also publish online SEO courses and SEO podcasts and things such as that.
Awesome. So it's all SEO, right?
My courses and my podcast, yes, although my work at Imagine includes both SEO and pay-per-click. I'm on the dark side as well.
Yeah, the black. But you know what? The black hat or the gray side of SEO has gone down in recent years. Like earlier, it was like black and white, and it was more black rather than white. Now that black has become a little gray, or there's more white SEO happening. Maybe Google has become smarter and put everyone in line. Okay, you got to be strict here.
Google's a lot smarter and has very little tolerance for black hat SEO and is so much better at finding it now. So yeah, I can't imagine anybody doing anything but white hat SEO these days.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about SEO markup. Now, SEO markup can be an intimidating concept for a lot of users who are mostly happy with installing their favorite SEO plugin and get done with the SEO process. Now, how would you define schema markup to this type of an audience in the WordPress ecosystem?
So I would first start by saying that, I've been doing SEO for 15 years and structured data and schema markup even scared me when I first started looking into it. I was petrified by it because I'm not a developer. But the more that I learned about it, the more I realized it's not as intimidating as people think. And it's just a matter of kind of familiarizing yourself with it. And so what is structured data? What is schema markup? Well, schema.org is a collaborative group of people that includes Google and Bing and other parties. And together they have created this vocabulary that can be used to create a more colorful description of your website and content for search engines. And the way I like to really break it down is when you go to like a website such as the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. I love that because it's got a lot of opportunities for structured data. We as humans see that there's a casino and events and hotel rooms, and there's specials and availability for these hotel rooms and different prices and all this kind of really rich information. Well, when a search engine crawls it, as a default, it just sees text and images and links, and it's very black and white, where we have a very colorful experience. When you start to use structured data and schema markup, you are now using language that the search engines have proactively created with others to give a more colorful representation of that information. So now with schema, the search engines can say, oh my gosh, this is a hotel website. I see there's accommodations. I see that there's pricing and there's specials. And oh, by the way, Share is opening as an event for this, Friday night. And oh, there's also a casino, and all this other information just starts to really, bubble up so that they have a much better idea of the website content, what that is, and who it can be used to help in search.
Now, while figuring out the, complete SEO plan for a specific project or a website, how important is SEO markup in the whole mix of SEO ranking factors, which are like so many of those?
So that's a great question, because it's something that, I typically have to talk through with clients, right? And I've had people, because I've been a big proponent of healthcare specific structure, data, and schema. There's been people coming in, they're like, okay, Rebecca, we saw your webinar or your podcast or whatever. We want this. And when I start to look at their website, I can see their website as a whole is a hot mess, right? And it's like, first of all, structured data for healthcare isn't going to solve all your problems until we get the foundation of the website solid. So, and I tell people that. So, is structured data important in today's SEO? Absolutely. But you still need to be able to have a good foundation first for the website from a technical and an SEO strategy and execution standpoint before you can start really bringing in structured data and schema and giving it even more color for the search engines.
And even the content, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, that is the main thing people forget. Like, they will install their favorite or the most hottest SEO plugin on their website because their best friend installed it, and they don't really bother about updating the content or probably adding a new content because it's been randomly added and they're done with it.
Well, and even like I said, people come in. One of the last leads we got in was someone wanting healthcare schema and markup, and they had like one page that really it could be used on for healthcare specific, because the rest of it was just like not robust, right? And I'm like, okay, so we have some, again, we have other things that we need to do first to build up that foundation.
Okay, let's start from the basic sections of schema on a page, which is like header and footer, like that. Those are the basics. Now, generally, header and footer markup is added by a WordPress theme that you're using on your website, right? But now with most people using page builders, header and footer markup is like a lost entity because a lot of people are building headers and footers with a page builder rather than using that of a theme. And I see a lot of websites where the header and the footer markup is missing. Now, are we confusing Google more or not helping Google enough by not putting header and footer markup and just doing the pleasurable thing of drag and drop using page builder and doing things quickly?
Yes and yes, right? The more, and this is what I always tell people is, so SEO, if you look at SEO, the core component of SEO, and this is what Google used to describe it as, it says it's about doing incremental things that individually don't make a huge impact. But when you bring them together, they can make a huge impact because you are helping the search engines better understand your content, your website, and who they can use it for, correct? Well, those headers and those footers, and that's kind of that markup, helps the search engines better understand your page, because now they know what is a traditional header that goes across the top, the footer at the bottom, the core of the content, and they use that information in ranking. For example, a link, where a link is located within the page, has different weights. Yeah. A link in the content has much more strength than it does in the header or the footer. And if you don't have that markup there, the search engines can't really tell all that apart. So everything that you can do to help the search engines better understand the structure of your content, the outline of content, the usage of your content, you are assisting yourself with SEO because you're helping the search engines do their job better.
Okay, before we move on, I want to clarify on one thing. So all those people who are listening and use a page builder, not all page builders are committing that sin. So if you're using Beaver Builder and you're using Beaver Themer for building header and footers, it's automatically adds the header and footer markup. So you're good to go there. And there are a few plugins who help you set up a builder template as header and footer, and they also add the markup. So it's not all bad with page builder. They are really good if you're using the good one, not the shiny one. So after header and footer, let's go down one level and talk about other semantic elements of HTML5, like sections, articles, A-sites, nav, and so on. How important are these elements within a page content?
Again, anything that you can do to help the search engines better understand the website and the content, honestly, you want to do, right? So, I mean, are they critical? I'm not going to say they're going to make or break your SEO, but they definitely help the search engines understand. What I will tell you, what I think people miss a lot is, so with HTML5, legally you can have a bazillion H1s on a page, right? And
this is a controversial topic, right?
it's going to validate. So, and Google says, well, we're not going to, fine you. We're not going to get you in trouble for having multiple H1s. Well, true, but you also aren't helping them understand your content. When you use proper HTML5 semantic structure, you've got only one H1, and then your H2s followed by H3s, and it's got structure. When you do that, you're helping the search engines truly understand what is the primary topic, what are your secondary topics, and you create flow for them. So you're helping Google understand your content better, and it really helps with SEO. If you go into Bing, Bing's actually going to tell you, silly, get rid of all these H1s, you should only have one per page. So, I mean, we already know that one search engine wants that for sure and tells us. One says, well, it helps us when you have proper outline structure. So yes, only one H1 and use proper structure. And if you don't know what that is or what it is, SEMrush's blog has a wonderful article for that. And if you just Google HTML5 semantic headers, SEMrush, it'll take you right to it. Read that article because it will bring all of that together for you and take away any fuzziness that might be there, and you'll see why it matters and how it can help you, both with coding and with the writing of content.
Yeah, because I remember I got into kind of a chit-chat argument on this exact topic because I was saying no one H1 tag. These were those times of using Genesis themes because they are considered HTML5 compliant and all that. And the person was replying, no, here's the link for HTML5 documentation. You can have multiple H1 tags here, there, even to the title of a comment box, you can have a H1 tag. I said, yes, it's allowed, but this traditionally you would understand one H1, multiple H2, H3s, and our argument went on because he had a so-called proof. But I guess still, I think the general rule of thumb is still, like, even if you're using HTML5 structure, one H1 and multiple H2, H3, H5, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And for content editors and people who manage the content, it's like, don't pick your headers based on the color and the size. It's really supposed to have an outline. And that's what a lot of people do. And I will admit, when I look back at old content on my own websites, I see that I was picking them for color and size years ago, and I wasn't picking them for semantics and structure. And I have to go back and update that kind of thing because I didn't do it back then. But my favorite quote from my Angelou is, "You do the best that you can, and when you know better, you do better." And that totally applies to SEO. As you learn more, you just improve what you do and you move forward.
Yeah, just like any other ecosystem, SEO is changing and there's always something new to learn in here as well, just like design and development. Because on web, there's always something new building every second. You need to update it. And the good part is, even though it seems like I bashed page builders, I myself use a page builder all the time. But now, most of the page builders are catching up with the SEO stuff as well. Like Beaver, I think 2-3 versions back, they introduced these HTML5 elements within their module. So if you're adding a post module on a blog post, then instead of wrapping those blog posts within like single blog post within a div element, which is by default a div element, you can actually change it to article, which Google will understand better, because you will have a blog post which will have a listing of say 10 blog posts, but it will be wrapped within an article, HTML5 tag, which will make more sense. Obviously, they have given the option, but most people don't remember to use it, I guess.
Yeah, they don't know the importance of it, and it just becomes clutter to them.
Yeah, they've even added the sidebar A side to the options of div. So if you're building, like a lot of people use Thema to build a single post template, and they've added a sidebar. So when you're building a sidebar, it's good to select A side for sidebar, because that's what Google will understand. But again, lack of knowledge. They've added the option, but people, it's just like they all are busy making colorful things, but under the hood. Okay, let's understand this concept with an example. Like, say, for example, there's a small business website of a local salon, right? So besides the usual, header, footer, and the page content stuff that we've talked just now, article section, what are the other special schema elements beyond these would be required on a local business, say, of a salon website?
Yep. So anybody that's local wants to use local schema. I mean, there is schema specific for location.
Okay.
And the more that you can utilize, again, structured data to really help articulate who you are and who you serve, right, and what you do, the more you'll rank. And that local schema will tell basic things like, where are you physically located? What type of a business are you? What are your hours of operation? And when you go to, like, using your salon example, if you go to Google and you type in, like, I'm looking for, some place to get my hair done, and all of this information starts coming back, or maybe I look for a salon name, right? And then there's this big box that comes off to the right, which is the knowledge panel, and it starts to give me really good information. Like, here's their hours of opening. Here's what they do, and it's rich, it's colorful, right? That comes from structured data and schema markup. So, that's a great place to start. And for the most part, like with local schema, there's plugins you can use. There's free plugins. You can buy the Yoast SEO plugin for that, which is you fill out some fields and it plops everything on the screen for on your website very easily. There's lots of options that you have to get that started. And definitely would encourage local businesses or developers who serve local markets to make sure they're using local schema for their clients.
So for in this example of a salon website, so besides the local business schema, say for example, they're offering, they offer the listing of various services like hair cutting, massage, etc. Would there be a schema for that as well?
Typically, no. Because that starts to get into industry-specific schema, and there's only a few industries right now that are active. Mm-hmm. Healthcare is a really big one. There's automotive, and there's a couple more that just I've never had to use. The biggest one, though, is healthcare, and here's an example of healthcare where you can really see how it starts to help Google. So the healthcare schema has things like symptoms and procedures and treatment plans and gosh, I'm blanking on the other ones. Like it gets into like the biotech, and it's so rich in that you're a physician and where's your hospital affiliation, and there's so much that you can build up from the healthcare schema to really say, here's a big long page. I'm talking about this disease, what it is, what are the symptoms, how would you get tested, what are the treatment options. And all of that's supported by a healthcare schema. And it's such a difference by just having black and white text, on there as you normally would, to having that, but then having underneath that all of the structured data to help the search engines really see what that is. And when you really start to look at it from that, it's magical. But what kills me is that nobody is using healthcare schema. Even the big websites and the huge hospitals, they're not using it. And I just floors me because it's not that hard to do once you just embrace it and you get over the fear. Like, you jump past that fear like I did. Then you realize it's a lot easier than you think.
WebMD doesn't use that?
They may use some, but you would be surprised at the number of websites you go to that just don't have it. Like the major hospitals I go in, they're not using structured data for physicians. I mean, it's like, and again, it's not super hard to do because like we've built templates inside Imagine. Megan on my team did it. And here's to take away the fear from everybody. So Megan, who works for me, has been doing internet marketing, I think for like 5 years, but only SEO for a couple of years. And when she started a year ago, she really started to get immersed with SEO full time. Mm-hmm. And she's not a programmer. She's not a developer. Her background is like project management and program management, things like that. She's whipped up templates for healthcare schema and structured data. She's putting in all those things that I just mentioned, the physician, structured data, the symptoms, the treatments and everything. She's creating the code and putting that into, the fields into a blank field on a website and making that show up and validate. If she can do it, anybody else can do it. And I'm not saying that Megan's not smart. Megan's smart. But still, it just shows you that she doesn't have any background in this. She has no coding background whatsoever. And if she can go and look through schema.org and say, okay, these apply to me, I'm going to put these into this box and I'm going to validate it with Google. Yep, it validates, we're good. Anybody can do it. It's getting past that fear.
Yeah, it's just the first few steps that are difficult. Once you, obviously, the interest should also be there, because dealing with the source code or the backend of the website is not an interesting area as compared to playing with colors and all that for most of the people. So that is also one of the aspect. Now, coming back to the salon website, obviously for services, no schema, special schema, right? But if a salon is selling, say, customized products, then either that person is using WooCommerce, which by default will add the product schema. Say, for example, that person is not using WooCommerce and he is just making a page, say one page or one post per product, and slapping a PayPal button there for transaction. I believe he or she can still add the product schema manually in that case.
Absolutely. And you would want to do that. Another area which I didn't mention is reviews. So like that's the most common. So you've got here's the most common schemas that you would see. You'd see the local schema, reviews, products, like you mentioned, events, jobs. Those are like some of the most common ones that you would use. And for the most part, there's plugins for WordPress, or you can piece it together yourself and put it into an open code field on the website or on the page, excuse me.
And I think FAQs also, like there's
FAQs, there's how-tos.
I think FAQs is included in the free Yoast as well. I think they have it.
Probably, yeah. I hate to admit it, but this part I'm a little bit removed from, because I have people doing so much stuff that I don't get to actually get into the nitty-gritty anymore like I used to. But yeah, it's amazing when you start to look at the plugins, and more are coming every day for WordPress that allow assistance with schema. The one thing to say about the plugins, though, is that you're not going to find one plugin that's going to do all schema sets for you. There's too many, and schema continues to adapt and grow. And you're going to potentially have multiple plugins, or like I suggested, the way Megan does it, you're going to create your own structured data to put in.
Okay, and is there a limit to adding number of schema elements to a specific page, or is it all subjective, depends on the person in charge of SEO optimization? Go blank or go all?
It's varied, right? Okay. You can have multiple schema sets on the same page if they're representing different sections of the page. But there are definitely restrictions, and you want to validate stuff before you actually roll it out, because Google has very little tolerance for poorly implemented schema. You will quickly start getting warning notifications left and right through Google Search Console telling you violated structured data guidelines, and it can definitely hamper your SEO efforts. So make sure that you test things out, because there are rules. And Google, by the way, has lots of great information on their website and their help guides and developer information to tell you where you're going to get in trouble. Like they literally say, here's the 5 things you can do that are going to get you in trouble. Don't do these. Here's the things that we want you to do to make sure your schema is getting used right. And so you want to read all of that before you fully dive in.
Okay. In a typical WordPress website, the base schema is added by a neatly coded theme, provided you are using a neatly coded WordPress theme. So that's one part that's covered. Now, to add the additional schema, which are few recommended tools and plugins as per your experience that works like charm, and you don't have to spend too much time?
Yeah, so I would tell you the Yoast add-on for WooCommerce or for local schema, super, super quick to implement and do. And if you're not a coder, throw those in and do them, right? I think the local schema is a purchase for Yoast, but still it's super easy to do, and it'll save you a lot of time. For the other plugins, they've been changing a lot. What I would tell you is make sure that when you are looking at plugins, if you're going to purchase one to help you do a lot of schema, don't buy one, because there is a service and a plugin that will do it monthly. They make you pay monthly. Don't do that. You don't need to pay monthly for schema markup. You can create it yourself. Yeah. I'd be okay with buying a plugin that there's an annual license, right? Because then I don't have to go through all of the hassle of figuring out schema, and that will guide me through if it covers what schema I need. Then I think it's worth the money. But I absolutely would not pay monthly for schema when you can create the code yourself, because really what you need is just that editor block inside each page where you can just plop in the code. And I think, if I recall correctly, Yoast has I think it's the free version of Yoast, is making adding schema much easier on the different blocks and things for Gutenberg. So definitely, something to consider there too.
Yeah, that is where that FAQ schema came into my mind. Actually, I read it somewhere that they've added it, and now I recollected they added it for widgets. Now they've converted it for Gutenberg block, provided you're using Gutenberg, which is a rarity still. So a lot of people don't use it. So I understand, even I don't use it. And now you mentioned, now I'm going to derail, I'll talk a little. Now you mentioned Yoast. Looks like you're still a Yoast fan. Are you still a Yoast fan?
I am, yeah, because I think, and here's why, it's not just because of the structured data and schema. Yoast does some things that, keep people safe. So like one of the things when I had started at Imagine, I'm like, all of our clients are going to use Yoast Premium. Why would I want them to use Yoast Premium? The very simple reason that it automatically creates a 301 if they change the URL, and it tells them, and they can override it. Right? That is like a great tool, because clients change URLs all the time, not realizing they're doing it, and they completely restart their SEO for a page when they do that. They can take something that's on page 1, right, super strong on page 1 with lots of ranking and traffic, and kill off their SEO by changing the URL. It happens. So that's like one of the reasons why I love using that plugin for clients, because it protects them, helps them with linking, gives them multiple keyword phrases that they can track and, help optimize. And it's great for the end user. If you're a developer, you probably don't need it. But for an actual end user, or like you have a client who updates their website a lot, I think it's good protection for them.
Yeah, even I still use Yoast. I've been using Yoast ever since I knew Yoast was there for SEO. Even though I bought the fancy options, the alternatives, but I didn't find courage to install them and use them, because there are a lot of SEO alternatives now, a lot of other SEO plugins in the market, which people rave about. Obviously, Yoast got its bad press for their little error thing that happened like few months back, which they changed, and few sites ranking tanked, and everyone blamed Yoast. But guess what? Everyone does mistakes. They were good to fix it. So that's more important than, and they admitted it, that they did something out of.
Yeah, I agree. People are human. Everybody makes mistakes. The important thing is to own your mistake, create a solution to the problem, and move forward.
Okay, now let's get back to schema. Now, would you recommend adding schema via a plugin or via a JSON file, via a JavaScript code? Which is your recommended method?
So if you can use a plug, I think it depends on who you are, right? If you're a developer, I probably would just do the JSON code and put that in. If you're an end user, I most likely would look for a plugin to do the work for you, because it will help keep you safe, and you wouldn't have to worry about any code things, because the plugin's doing it for you. Again, I don't think that there is a singular way in every scenario, or you're going to have a singular route for every set of structured data. I think it's going to vary. And
you being at an agency, which is your preferred method as an agency, put people there doing client websites?
So you get, when you install Yoast, you get some core structured data right there. Right, it's giving you organization and basic things. So we definitely do that. And then because we end up doing a lot of healthcare, because Imagine's highly focused on the healthcare and biotech industry and sectors, we do manual JSON, because it is really the only way. There are no plugins that you can drop in to do healthcare schema for you. It doesn't exist. So the easiest thing for us is to create it for our clients and put it in.
Now you've added schema to the website. How do you check and validate your schema markup?
You check it and validate it before you actually add it to the website.
Okay.
So Google actually has a structured data testing tool that you can either put in a URL and validate, or you can put in code. So ideally, before you ever add the code to the website, you put that in there, validate it that it's correct. Then you can add it to your URL, publish it, and then check that URL. You definitely don't want to just implement structured data and hope for the best and just wait for the notifications from Google, because that's not going to end well.
Yeah,
you laugh, but people do that.
Yeah, because that's adventurous. Okay, so
That's
besides
adventurous and it's dangerous all at the same time.
that tool, is there any other tool that, or that's the only tool for checking?
There's a lot of tools out there. That's the one that we always use. It's the one I've used since I think it came out, and it's the one that my team uses as well.
Now, these tools tell you whether your code is valid or not. Now,
Yes.
how do you check whether the type of schema that you're using is correct or not? I'm sure that there's no tool for that. You need to use your own personal expertise or hire an expert or, do a brain.
Yeah, there is no tool that I know of that's going to, give you all of that information. The only tool you're going to have is Google Search Console when it starts to yell at you because you've done it incorrectly. And I always feel like it's yelling, like it's like the messages that come, because I have one client, an old client, but I'm still on his Google Search Console. So I get the messages, and I don't do any SEO work with him, but it's a job website. And I constantly see Google just telling him, no, you violated. Nope, you violated. Okay, you're fixed. Nope, you violated. I mean, it's like nonstop. So Google will yell at you.
Curious, is there any study or in your experience of working with SEO over the period of few years, like a website with very little schema markup vis-a-vis you added schema markup, has there been any shift in Google search ranking, like any number study, like quantitative, not subjective, but quantitative study that you've come across?
So there is a blog post. There's a couple of blog posts people have done to say, here's the ranking before structured data. Here's the structured data change we did. Here's the new ranking as things progressed. I don't recall them off the top of my head, but they're definitely out there. And we could see improvements with client websites once structured data is implemented. And it's not going to be like, you're not going to add structured data and you're going to be a rock star tomorrow, right? What you're doing is you're helping the search engines better understand what's going on. But like you said, you still have to have good content. You still need to have backlinks. You still need to have, be an expert in your industry and have authority and that, and that type of thing. Because it's the whole, it's not the individual pieces that make SEO successful.
Okay. And in your experience, what are the most common mistakes people make while implementing SEO markup? Obviously, one being not implementing it at all, but those who implement it.
So I would say, not implementing it, not validating that the structured data that you have is correct, or not using the right structured data for the content itself. There's people will try to use like recipe structured data for not a recipe, for example, you know what I mean? And they're trying to shove in structured data where it doesn't exist. And your content, your content has to match what your structured data is. So if you have 5 elements listed within structured data, those 5 elements need to be visible on the website for humans. You can't like try to bury it in the website and think that that's going to be okay. But again, if you go to Google, you'll get the most common things that they see as issues, information on how not to do structured data incorrectly, and then Google Search Console will continue to give you information, as you move forward.
I was actually going through your presentation on schema markup, and in your one slide, you mentioned that the WordPress is the best option or gives you the maximum options to implement the structure markup. And the other platforms like Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, and other hosted solutions do not. So because people do come up with an argument and say, okay, my friend's website is hosted on Squarespace and it gets a lot of traffic, etc., etc. So if someone's website is hosted on Squarespace or using Wix, is there a method, method of injecting schema there, or is it like complete block or end of the wall kind of a thing here?
I honestly do not know because I don't do any SEO with Squarespace and Wix websites. I only typically do like WordPress or Drupal or, another large CMS that we would be working with the client on. So I can't answer that. I don't know. And from the time that I did that presentation, they may have implemented some options or some add-ons to allow for structured data. You can't run away from it anymore. Google's pushing it more and more. So is Bing. It is here to stay. I kept thinking at the beginning it was going to go back away. It ain't going back away. So you definitely just need to embrace it. And if you're in using those tools, find out if there are add-ons that you can utilize to implement it.
Yeah, because they are pulling their socks up, because I saw like few months back, Wix introduced a challenge, SEO challenge, like they gave a keyword. Let's, rank something. I don't know whether that was a marketing stunt or what. What do you make of that?
It was a marketing stunt, and they're asking themselves to get in trouble because they're trying to manipulate search engine results, and Google does not like that. And when they put stuff out there visibly like that, it literally it's like whammy me. Please, it's like you're raising your hand. Come on, Google, come whammy me. Whenever people do that, I'm like,
Okay, so last question for schema markup would be like someone who's listening and he only knows, plugins and setting up those things, meta title, meta description, and all that stuff, the basic stuff. How can he learn and get comfortable with schema markup?
So what I would tell you, and the people who don't like Yoast will not like this answer, but I would tell you go peruse the Yoast blog, because they have tons and tons of information about schema, and it's generally written at a level that all people can understand. And I would tell you to look there. I would tell you to look at Google Docs. Just start like Googling, Google, I'm trying to think, Google developer something for structured data. I'm sorry, I'm failing totally on like what I would Google, but you'll see the links, right? And when you get in the right spot, you'll see multiple pages that Google has about structured data and how to do it properly. Those would be the places that I would start. And then there are a lot of resources on the internet, YouTube videos. I've done webinars and podcasts about it. There's just, because it's growing, and the SEO consultants are using it more and more and more. So people are actually starting to write about it and publish information about it more and more and more. A few years ago, it was really hard to find good information on it. It's all over now. So I think Google is your friend and helping you find information on how to please Google.
And this question is from the point of view of an agency owner who's selling SEO services to client. Now, I'm sure even you do it or you've done it. Like, do you offer schema markup as a separate add-on package for SEO services, or it's included within it? So, for example, in agency building a website for a small business and on-page SEO is included, would schema markup would be included, or it's like a premium add-on?
So for website builds, I've always done structured data as a premium add-on, so that they can have the core SEO and the foundation, and then if their budget allows, they can also have structured data. For ongoing clients where you're doing SEO with them on month-to-month basis, it's just been part of the retainer. You have a set amount of hours allowed. We allocate part of our hours to working on structured data.
And the related question here would be, how do you convince a client, besides me installing you a Yoast SEO plugin and configuring, you also need something called SEO markup or schema markup?
The easiest way I've done is when I give them proposals is to show them what it is, give them resources where they can learn more about it, right? And then give them examples. So for example, if you're a hospital, I just don't say to them, hey, hospital, we need to structure data. I say, hello, hospital, I would love to implement structured data for you. Here are the things we would be implementing. And I give them the specifics in their website where structured data would apply. Then I give them, and I tell them what structured data is, and I explain it. And you're speaking the search engine's language, right, to be able to do this. And then again, I give them resources to find out more information. And then, as we go through proposals, we talk about what that is live, and people ask questions. And I don't think in this last year, I've had one person not take structured data when I proposed it to them. I think everybody has opted for that add-on because they realize they do have content where it applies, and they really do want to make sure that they are communicating with the search engines in the most efficient manner.
Yeah, just like when responsive features on themes came out, that was sold as a premium feature. Mm-hmm. I guess schema markup will also become mainstream probably a few years down the line.
It will be, and it'll be easier to implement too. We won't have the manual hoops that we have to jump through for the industry specific versions, or even the elements of regular structured data that's just not used very much.
So SEO schema markup is not scary, right?
It's not. It's, in fact, I'm speaking at WordCamp Ann Arbor in August about structured data, and that's going to be the beginning of the talk. Is, don't fear the schema. Just don't fear it. Like, don't be me 5 years ago who's completely freaked out about it, because if we can do it, and like my team can do it, who has no developing and coding skills, so can everybody else, right? It's just kind of embracing it and taking it step by step and learning more and more each day.
Awesome. Now let's shift gears and talk about your toolbox. So which are your current 5 favorite tools that power your online business?
Yeah. So keep in mind, my focus is SEO. So the things I must have SEMrush.
Okay.
I've talked about that tool for forever. I absolutely love it. It's great for competitive research. It's great for doing audits on websites and really just tracking a bunch of things. I have that for every client. I must have KW Finder.
Okay.
KW Finder does really good keyword research. Both of those are paid. When I'm working with larger clients with larger sites, I must have DynoMapper. DynoMapper crawls the website and provides visual architectural, views of the content, exports, and it's like the absolute best tool for accessibility audits. Not found anything else to be able to work as great as DynoMapper. Those are my top 3 that I absolutely must have. I love Yoast for WordPress, because I think it's really good for end users, and it just helps them do better SEO and protect themselves. I'm trying to think of what my 5th one would be.
Ahrefs?
I do like Ahrefs, and they actually sponsored a season of my podcast, but I could live without that because I can get backlink information from SEMrush. Oh, you know what? I think another one would be probably Screaming Frog. Yeah. Screaming Frog gives, it does the crawls of the website. It's fairly inexpensive, and it will give you similar to information to SEMrush, but also different information. It's really good with internal linking and really making sure that internal linking is correct because of the type of data and the way it can present that data. So those would be my 5. So DynoMapper, SEMrush, KW Finder, Screaming Frog, and then the Yoast SEO plugin.
Awesome. Which is a recommended web hosting service?
I currently host with Liquid Web, and I'm also a fan of WP Engine. And it's because performance is good, technical support is usually pretty good, and they have nice staging sites so that you don't break your own website. So you can actually test your structured data and staging.
And do you use the page builder? Or you ever used a page builder?
I am not a fan of page builders, and I love the guys at Beaver Builder, but the reason I'm just not a fan is because it makes it more difficult for me to do SEO, because I'm not, things are in components where for me to do SEO, I need to scan. I need to look at the whole content, and it forces me to go to the live pages and look at the whole content. I don't even use Gutenberg. I have the Classic Editor plugin loaded on every single site I touch, because Gutenberg I'm old school. I've been with WordPress since 2008, I think. Mm-hmm. I'm old. It's hard to make the old dogs do new tricks.
But everyone is gonna come on Gutenberg eventually, probably.
I know. I just will let everybody else go first.
Yeah, let's measure the depth of the sea and then see who can jump where. But coming back to Beaver Builder, now they've added really good features from SEO point of view. Like normally, if you would stack rows to build the homepage, every row would be a div, right? But on homepage, you can shift those div into sections. So they've added a drop down, so you can add any HTML5 markup to that section. It could be a section, it could be a side, it could be a header, it could be a footer, because again, in HTML5 terms, you can have a subheading within a homepage also as a header. Like I read it somewhere. Now I know it won't fit in my traditional SEO mindset, but then it works. It works in technical terms. For example, you have a hero section with heading and subheading, and then you have a second section that says services or our services, so that our services section can be a header section within that section. So I know it can be complicated for someone who's listening. I understand the hierarchy, but I still won't use that hierarchy because I prefer to have one header on the page rather than multiple. It's just like having multiple H1s and multiple. That doesn't get into my head still. I'm sure even you like the traditional approach, like you mentioned few minutes back?
Yeah, I'm old school.
Same here. I'm also old now, like it's been like 12 years in the online world. So I actually started my online journey with Genesis. Genesis was my first theme. I started with Revolution theme, the theme that Brian Gardner made before Genesis.
Yeah.
So that was my first ever WordPress theme. Then I went to Genesis, and I've been in Genesis for almost 4 or 5 years. Now I have moved on to Beaver Builder ecosystem, and there's so many themes there. Obviously, since all of the development happens on Beaver Builder, so we use Beaver Builder theme because it's a lean theme, plain theme, doesn't have much functions and features because everything is handled by the Beaver Builder itself.
Mm-hmm.
This talk can go endless. So next question is recommended email marketing service.
I loved Drip until they changed their pricing structure. So I think Drip and MailChimp are pretty easy to use, and they have really good features with, the segments and tags and things like that. So yeah, those would be my two go-to tools.
A lot of people from Drip has gone to ConvertKit because of that frustration.
Mm-hmm.
So last question, any upcoming tool or service that has caught your attention recently?
I don't think so. I'm trying to think. No. Sadly, no. Where are all the new services and the all new tools?
Gutenberg is new.
Yeah, that didn't catch my eye though. Classic Editor caught my eye.
You're not alone. Okay, Rebecca, thank you so much for your time. Anything that you want to say and share about SEO Markup before we wrap this episode?
You just, like I said, don't fear it. I hope this conversation has made you feel more warm and fuzzy towards structured data and schema markup. And I, encourage you, like if you start to go through it and you start to get a little bit freaked out, just remember Megan. If Megan can do it, so can you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good day.
You're welcome.